This is Hot Mic. Hot Mic. On the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour 2 of Hot Mic. Ready to roll here on this Hump Day Wednesday. Bison Media Zone coming up in about a half hour. Late last week, we mentioned it on Friday's show. News broke actually Thursday out of Bismarck that Bismarck State is moving on up to the NAIA and a new member of the Frontier Conference. Of course, we've been following this realignment. We're talking realignment constantly, and it hits home here in Small College, North Dakota, obviously with the additions that Valley City State, Mayville State, Dickinson State joining the Frontier, and now they're going to have another North Dakota school hopping on board with Bismarck State. But this is a rather large change going from a 2-year school to a 4-year school. And the man who's charged with the athletic part of that joins us here. Athletic Director Myron Schultz joins us here on this Wednesday morning. It's great to see you. Thanks so much for the time. Just try to recap the last 4 days of when the news came out and what's this been like? What whirlwind has this been like over the last few days?
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, it's been fun, but it's really been a longer journey than that. Since I started 3 years ago, one of the talks was we wanted to build a new facility. We wanted to add sports, and we were looking at moving up to 4-year. Bismarck State College is now we're North Dakota's Polytechnic College, and Polytechnic offers more like 4-year offerings. So we want to position ourselves that way. So we were looking at the NEI, and when we started, it was we thought we were going to be in the North Star Conference, and it was all simple. Then all, like you said, you see the big realignment nationally with teams like Oregon being in the Big Ten, but all of a sudden you go, hey, it's happening to us, because all of a sudden the North Star really basically didn't exist, and then then it became a merger with the Frontier, and we're in all those conversations. So last spring we were accepted into the NEI, and then now we got accepted into the Frontier and took that position, and it's exciting. But now the real work comes out. Now it's easy to say you're going. Now it's how do you give yourself how do you do all the smart things to allow yourself to be competitive.
So I have about 8 questions on that. So in the logistics part of it, for people that don't know, Myron, what does it take to go from a 2-year to a 4-year? What are the logistics of that first?
Obviously you got to apply to the NEI and you got to put everything in place. And it's, one of it's, it's how many majors do you have? And, we're still not, abundant in 4-year majors, but there's a plan for the future, and there's some pathways to build that. So, because obviously, I played at BSC back in the 80s when we used to play against these schools, but we were a 2-year school. So we had 18-year-olds going against Canadian transfers that played junior league for 4 years, and we took our whoopings. So our goal, I know what that's like. So we want to get that we have a bunch of juniors and seniors playing also, but we're not going to abandon any talent group. I mean, Duke goes one and done. Maybe if we can still find a couple of people that come and play for 2 years, and I view everybody. We were the original transfer portal, but everyone's a transfer portal now. I see the really good player from NDSU that transferred to Alabama, the really good player from Jamestown that transferred to Wyoming. I mean, we're gonna recruit junior colleges now. We're gonna recruit bounce backs. We're gonna recruit our own juniors and freshmen and sophomores, and then we're also going to maybe still look for a person that comes here for 2 years and tries to build off that and go to a higher level. So a lot of it's paperwork and logistics, but I guess the real part is building infrastructure so your war chests look like your opponents.
The conversations with the Frontier, how early did that start? Once I guess you got wind that the North Star wasn't going to be solvent, how early did that start then with the Frontier?
That started probably like last fall.
Yeah.
And, we met down in Denver, and those were great conversations. And and one of the real sticking points was baseball, because baseball is really important to us and to Valley and Mayville and Dickinson, and they don't have baseball in the Frontier Conference now. It's actually being started as a Montana high school sport now, so there's probably some growth for that. But baseball was really hanging in limbo. Then all of a sudden, Dakota State and Bellevue came in as baseball and were willing to come into the Frontier, and that really saved baseball and softball, and that's kind of when the merger really made sense.
I know I was visiting with Rocky Larson at Mayville about that, about getting those schools on board, because baseball just didn't want to be, especially with those schools and their history with baseball, yourself included. You've got a really great lineage of players that have played there and gone on to to four-year schools. Was that, I wouldn't say a sticking point, but was that something we got to find a home? Baseball's got to have something or we can't do this.
I think it was a sticking point. Obviously, we were thinking that way, but it was whether or not Mayville and Valley were going to go.
Yeah.
And then for us, it's obviously way better that now we're in the middle of the conference. Hurts us in recruiting now because we got to go through everybody's backyard to recruit, but it helps us in travel and having a team. And otherwise, we'd have been the very eastern part of the Frontier Conference, and our travel would have been crazy. Now we're going to have a Dickinson and a Valley and a Mayville trip, and make a big one trip out to Montana. And so it was a sticking point. It was what caused a major delay and caused Valley City exploring D2, caused Mayville exploring D3, and so it was kind of and then we were actually the sixth team for baseball, which gives us an automatic qualifier. So we became a pivotal part of that expansion.
For people that haven't been by campus, you've broke ground. You mentioned on your new facility. Give us the lowdown on the Babendick Center and how this transforms your campus and your athletic program.
Oh, it's amazing for us. So we're in an old armory, and it was built for the National Guard. When you step onto the court, step into the gym, you're on the court, you're on the playing surface. There was no architect would have made that for athletics. There's no front of house or back of house. Ceilings are too low. Yeah. There's a couple. I'm looking at a vault right now where they used to keep the ammo, and so it's a great facility. We love it. It's going to be a great, almost like a baseball academy for us after this. But we're building a 2,000 seat, $40 million facility. It's going to be a great home for our basketball, volleyball, and wrestling. Our weight room will be in there. A lot of our offices will be in there. It'll be right up from the community bowl, the MDU community bowl. And, it's going to offer us a lot. It's not in any way meant or copied from the Newman Center, but I would say Newman Center-ish size and scope is kind of what is going to be launched.
And that was my next question was just location-wise. You said it's going to be by the community bowl?
Yes, it's going to be right up from it. It's going to be right across from the State Aquatic Center, and they got the footings down and the settings and the foundation walls are going up. So kind of drive by every day, and now I know they're past the point of no return. Otherwise they just have a weird hole in the ground.
For your athletes, how much were they plugged into this, understanding what's going on? Were you keeping them in the loop, or was this something you couldn't on your current athletes right now?
Now, we've always been talking to them about it, that it's possible, and part of the reason is we want to retain as many as we can, they're our current sophomores, and some of them we won't. They came here as a junior college. That was their plan, or we won't have their major, but we're hoping to retain as many as possible. But it wasn't great communication because not everything was crystal clear.
Right.
So it was more this concept that you may be able to be here 4 years. It wasn't. Now we're coming in with the real, here's our offerings, here's our pathways, here are our careers. What could you do? So actually now, like I said, these are the pivotal couple of weeks for us because there is NEIA, there is no signing date. NJCA, it was November 1st. So it's hot and heavy for signing athletes right now.
The transition now, everything is for next academic year, correct?
Correct. So we'll start playing fall of 25.
So scheduling-wise, as an AD, does this make things easier or harder? And you're in a league and you've got conference opponents, but what does that do for scheduling for your other sports?
Exactly. I mean, it's that's what we'd already been dealing with. We had all waiting. Coaches, I said, as soon as you get this, we got to start tomorrow filling in your non-conference games. And it's going to be a challenge, but I kind of view it like the Chinese, the 100-year war. We want to be good right away. We want to do it efficiently, but we also, we'll work through it, and it's going to be the right home and the right level and spot for us.
Myron, have they told you, because, we know the league goes everywhere. I mean, California, Arizona, in terms of travel, have they given you any updates on that yet of what you're going to do basketball-wise, of where you're going, or is that not formulated yet?
Well, it's a little different. So when you see that big geographical footprint, that's football.
Yep.
When we come out of get into volleyball or basketball, it's really Montana and then the old North Star Conference.
Okay.
And we're going to play like double the games on the eastern side, and then we'll make one big road trip to Montana. which really isn't probably that much different than what we're doing right now with going to Denver for the JUCO advocate and those type of things. So, but no, yeah, I'd be a lot more scary if I had to figure out tomorrow I'm going to raise enough money to fly a football team down to Arizona.
Well, that leads me to my next question, because Todd Sheldon from Mandan was on before you. He said, tell Myron to get a football program. So in the last 5 days, I know you're a football guy. How often have you heard, hey, is Bismarck State going to get football?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's why I was hired, but kind of ironic. We've added rodeo and track and wrestling and cross country, but football isn't really even mentioned. Next thing in the queue is women's wrestling, and we're actually going to add drone racing, which it's really interesting. It's probably a whole show in itself, but but football, I think now becomes maybe part of the conversation in the future. It's really more just rumblings, and because football is a big infrastructure. It's a monster of infrastructure. Right now, we don't have enough dorms. If we had football, you're talking 100 new athletes, and you're talking, plus we got to add on the women's side, some women's sports to equal those numbers. So we probably got to build a dorm. Then the next thing, with building all the facilities we're building, we still don't have football locker rooms, football offices, football meeting rooms. So now you're talking, and the state doesn't really help with athletic facilities. They'll help you build a new engineering wing, but so now those become challenging to get those infrastructure built.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, what's going to cause more momentum and more of that conversation is now everybody. The reason BSC dropped football was there was no one to play. So now there's everyone to play. Now we're the outliers. So I think that becomes and I was at Mary when we added it, and it changed the school. It went from like 800 to 1,500, 1,600 kids, and so it's a game changer, and it's something that I think that will always be there. But now there's more. We got a home, so now it's just how do you get the infrastructure.
There's a lot of challenges to that, but when you mention, the opportunity to play a Valley City State or a Mayville State or Dickinson State, the appeal of that, when you say that, I'm sure there's people like, boy, that'd be a heck of a thing to have a game in Bismarck, and we could do that.
Well, I remember when I was at Mary, we played Dickinson State. We quite honestly had like 8,000-9,000 people at the bowl, and it was and it was great. It was great games when we played Dickinson State. So it was and plus it's so easy to be a fan because you get over to Valley's easy, get over to Mayville's easy. It's when you got to start traveling to Murray State that it's hard to it's hard to get down there if you don't have an airplane. I loved your photo with the horse from the runners or whatever their name is.
The racers. Yeah, that's but there's challenges to they're finding that out right now. I could tell you that on the flip side of the athletic challenges, that they're in a league where they don't, like you're talking about, they don't have the facility, they don't have the infrastructure. They're in an uphill battle with schools that have it established, like North Dakota State and South Dakota State. Speaking to what you're facing if you were going to try and do that, I guess my question then going forward, you mentioned what you have on your plate. So what would you say now that you got this taken care of? What's 1A on the to-do list today? What's the next thing that you got to get done?
So the first thing what we're really working on right now is what's a scholarshiping and upping our scholarships to the Frontier Conference norm.
Yeah.
And we got some of that data, and for some of our sports it's substantial. We're going up a lot of money. A couple of our sports we were kind of there. So, and then obviously like baseball and softball we were kind of there. It wasn't, and they don't even have those out in the Frontier. So so me it's infrastructure. And the next thing is we've been moving down this way, but all full-time coaches as compared to part-time head coaches. Maybe look at our even more kind of our assistant coaches, sometimes our adjuncts. They maybe need to move in that full-time range. So it's going to be facilities, it's going to be scholarships, it's going to be really trying to find our moat. What do we have that gives us a competitive advantage or foothold?
Being in Bismarck just the last couple of days, what's been the buzz around town? What have you heard?
Kind of the same thing when you add football. But no, it's exciting. It's a lot of it's it's just people that I think it's energy, and it's a combination of all three things. It's adding sports, it's a new facility, playing at a new level. We kind of view it as a rebirth, and we're just catching people's attention because they see that there's energy and enthusiasm invested in it, and so it's just kind of a buzz.
So Kolpak, I think put a column out last April about changing the logo. Did you see that? And did you take that under advisement?
I loved it. I got all kinds of funny responses.
I bet you did. Yeah.
But not. I know not to. I know you guys are more funny than me. And when I say don't get in a match with someone that buys ink by the barrel. But no, I loved it. His son was actually a great player.
Yes.
I had to go back and dig in and do a bunch of research on that. So that was fun. But yeah, I mean, I think all attention. I mean, I was actually joking with our PA person that we got to announce what they're the Bismarck Barracudas too next week. So, but no, that's all. Everything's up in the air.
That's what I was going to say. But I'm assuming like every idea is on the table, right? Between now and when you want to get this going.
Yes, yeah. That is one of the weird things kind of hanging out there is that we are the state's polytechnic college. I mean, does that mean? I mean, I know Cal Poly. That's a team that do we start to have a different name someday? We even talk about that. Like we've got a new tent for our cross country team. What do we put on there to make sure we don't got to buy a new tent in a year?
That's why you get paid the big bucks, bud. That's what happens when you're the AD moving up. So I appreciate the time this morning. We'll check in again on this. Congrats, and thanks for the time.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Myron Schultz joining us. Bismarck State Athletic Director, of course, the news late last week that BSC is moving up from the Mondac up to the NAIA and to the Frontier Conference. Eric, when you have a second, throw that map up again, because Myron made a good point there that some of those schools, as we know, are football only, but the footprint for BSC will be basically North Dakota, down in Nebraska with Bellevue down there, and or into Iowa, excuse me, and then into Montana. That's where they're heading. The question, and he's going to get barraged with it now, is about football. I mean, it makes sense, but financially, can they make it make sense? That's the thing. And I've had I had a few other emails on Friday. I got a couple text messages too. We didn't have time for Friday because we were packed with stuff about this. It's like, does North Dakota need another 4-year school? That's a legit question, knowing enrollment is what it is at some of these places. I think, what is this now, 7, I believe, in North Dakota? That's a lot for a state that's population is not that large. Are you robbing Peter to pay Paul? You're siphoning one to take away from the other. That's the discussion point that'll probably come out of this. I'm really curious to see how they make this work. I mean, this facility that they're building, I've been out there to see the footprint of it. It has potential to be fantastic. And I've been to BSC where they play games. It's not, he's right. It's an armory. That's not a NAI level place where they can play. They're going to do it for this upcoming year. It'll be ready, their new building, for 2026. But it's I wouldn't say it's a gamble. It's an interesting move when I heard about it. I'm like, okay, we'll see. Appreciate his time this morning. We'll have more with Myron as this continues to advance in the coming months. We'll take our final break. We come back, we'll wrap things up, and we'll get you ready for a busy Sporting Wednesday on tap. Hot Mike will wrap right after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV, and Inforum.com.